When my Arthur and I got married in 1952, the world was a quieter place, but not necessarily an easier one. We didn't have a penny to our names. We were just two young kids, hoping love would be enough to pay the rent. Our first home was a tiny, drafty apartment directly above a commercial bakery. I can still close my eyes and smell the heavy yeast and burnt sugar creeping up through the floorboards every morning at 4 o'clock. Arthur worked at the city rail yards, coming home every night smelling of engine oil, iron dust, and bone-weary exhaustion. I was young, expecting marriage to be a continuous, joyful waltz, but marriage is a forge. It requires fire, and sometimes it requires a heavy hammer. Let me tell you the truth, by 1968, that fire had nearly burned us down to ash. We had 3 small children, bills piled up on our chipped kitchen table like dead autumn leaves, and a terrifying, suffocating silence had grown between us. It was the hardest year of my life. Arthur took double shifts just to keep us afloat, becoming a ghost in his own home. He would leave before the sun came up and return long after we had gone to sleep. I grew deeply, resentfully bitter. I remember sitting at that table one freezing November evening, watching the white frost creep up the window pane, crying quietly into a cold cup of tea. I packed a worn leather suitcase in my mind 100 times that winter. One evening, he came home unexpectedly early in the freezing, relentless winter rain. He walked into the kitchen, his heavy coat soaked through, his face drawn tight with exhaustion. I didn't even look up from the potatoes I was peeling at the sink. The resentment was a physical weight in my chest. "Eleanor," he said. I can still hear his voice. It was rough, scraped raw from the cold wind and metallic dust. "I'm so tired." I finally turned around and looked at him. That was the first time in 16 years I had ever heard my Arthur admit to any kind of weakness. He wasn't the invincible boy I married. He was grinding himself down to dust just to put food in our cupboards. He reached into his damp coat pocket and placed something on the table. It was a silver pocket watch, the very same watch I had bought for him on our first anniversary. He had pawned it 3 months earlier to pay for our watch. Youngest daughter's severe bout of pneumonia. I had been so wrapped up in my own anger that I hadn't even noticed it was missing. "I bought it back today," he said, his voice breaking. "I worked the weekend shifts for 3 straight months, Eleanor, because I couldn't stand the thought of losing the time you gave me." I wept. We sat in that freezing kitchen, his calloused, grease-stained hands gently holding my trembling hands. We didn't magically solve our problems that night. The bills were still there. But the terrible silence was finally broken. We remembered exactly why we were holding the line together. Young people today might not understand this, but back then you didn't throw things away just because they were broken. You fixed them. You sat down at the table, looked honestly at the damage, and found the glue. Experience has taught me that the absolute longest journey you will ever take in your life is the few short steps across a room to say, "I am sorry." We took those steps over and over again. And then, 26 years ago, he left this world. He passed quietly in his sleep, with that same silver watch ticking softly on his bedside table. And suddenly, all that endless time I thought we had was just gone. You have to understand something fundamental. Love isn't a feeling you have, it's a decision you make every morning. It is waking up, seeing all of your partner's flaws and failures, and saying, "I choose you again today." Perfection is a dangerous illusion. Our marriage survived for half a century, not because we were destined by the stars, but because we were two incredibly flawed, stubborn people who refused to give up on each other. Sacrifice is not a dirty word. It is the very currency of deep, unconditional love. My late husband used to say, "Eleanor, We are on the same team. That phrase was our ultimate anchor. The lack of money was the enemy. The exhaustion was the enemy, not each other. Think about that. Are you keeping a mental score of your partner's wrongs? Because the moment you start keeping score in a marriage, you have both already lost the game. I am 94 years old. My time is slipping through my fingers like fine sand when you are finally standing at the very edge of the stage. You realize with absolute clarity that the only thing you get to take with you is the pure love you gave away, and the only thing you leave behind is the lasting memory of how you made people feel. Cherish your people, forgive them for being utterly, wonderfully human, have the hard conversations, choose to fix what is broken instead of tossing it out into the cold, and never ever take for granted the breathtaking miracle of growing old with someone you love.